22 years in corporate security taught me that every building has secrets. What I discovered in the Parkwood Entertainment headquarters wasn't just a secret. It was something that powerful people kill to protect. Before I tell you what I found on those surveillance tapes, I need to know something. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. It's important for me to understand how far this truth is spreading and whether the people who silence me are monitoring who's listening to this story. My name is Frank Kowalski. I'm 48 years old, married for 23 years, with twin daughters finishing their sophomore year at State University. I spent 2 decades working security for Fortune 500 companies before I got the call that changed my life forever. The offer came through a headhunting firm that specialized in high-level corporate protection. Supervisor position at Parkwood Entertainment in Manhattan. The pay was 40% higher than my previous job, with benefits that would cover my daughter's remaining tuition, and finally let Patricia quit the part-time work she'd been doing to help make ends meet. It's a straightforward assignment, the recruiter explained during our phone interview. Executive protection protocols, facility security, standard corporate surveillance operations. The client values discretion and professionalism above everything else. I should have asked more questions about why they needed someone with my specific background. 22 years of experience, military training, top secret clearance from my Army intelligence days. Most corporate security jobs don't require that level of qualification unless they're protecting more than just office buildings and conference rooms. But when you're staring at college tuition bills and a mortgage that keeps climbing, you don't question good fortune. You take the job, do the work, and trust that your experience will keep you out of trouble. The Parkwood Entertainment building on West 26th Street looked exactly like what you'd expect from a successful music management company. Sleek glass facade, marble lobby, the kind of understated luxury that signals serious money without showing off. 23 floors of offices, recording studios, meeting rooms, and executive suites. On my first day, I met with Howard Brennan, the security director who was supposedly retiring after 15 years with the company. He was younger than me, maybe 45, but he moved like someone carrying invisible weight. When he shook my hand, his palm was damp with sweat despite the building's aggressive air conditioning. The protocols here are different from other corporate environments, he explained as we toured the building's security center. We handle high-profile clients, sensitive business information, confidential creative projects. What you see and hear stays strictly within these walls. The security setup was impressive. Cameras covering every hallway, elevator, and common area. Motion sensors, access card logs, 24-hour monitoring stations with multiple backup systems. Everything you'd expect from a company protecting valuable intellectual property and celebrity clients. But it was what Howard didn't show me that should have raised red flags. Floors 18 through 20 are restricted access, he said as we reviewed the building schematics. Executive meetings, private offices, confidential project spaces. Your security clearance doesn't extend to those levels. What kind of clearance would? The kind you don't apply for, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The kind that finds you when you're ready. I started on the night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., which suited me fine. Good pay for relatively quiet work, and I'd be home before Patricia left for her morning shift at the medical billing company. The building mostly emptied by 8 o'clock, leaving me alone with the cleaning crew and the occasional late night session in the recording studios. For the first month, everything was exactly what I'd expected. I'd make my rounds, monitor the surveillance feeds, log any unusual activity. The most exciting thing that happened was a minor water leak in one of the conference rooms and a few false alarms from oversensitive motion detectors. But during my second month, I started noticing patterns that didn't match normal business operations. Elevators moving to floors 18, 19, and 20 between 2 and 4 a.m. despite those levels supposedly being empty. Cars arriving at the building's private garage during hours when no legitimate business meetings should be happening. People entering through service entrances that weren't supposed to be accessible after midnight. Just executives working late. Howard explained when I mentioned the unusual activity. Creative projects don't follow normal business hours. Best to focus on your assigned monitoring zones and let the upper floors handle their own security. But I hadn't spent 2 decades in corporate security by ignoring my instincts. Something about the late night activity felt wrong. Not just irregular business hours, but deliberately concealed operations that someone had taken great care to hide from standard security protocols. That's when I started paying closer attention to the surveillance footage. The cameras covering floors 18 through 20 were connected to our monitoring system, but the feeds were supposedly encrypted for executive privacy. Standard practice in high-level corporate environments. What wasn't standard was the way those encrypted feeds occasionally glitched, revealing brief glimpses of activity that definitely wasn't normal business meetings. During one of these glitches, I caught 30 seconds of footage showing a group of people in what looked like ceremonial robes moving through a conference room that had been completely renovated since the building schematics I'd been given. Instead of conference tables and office furniture, the room contained stone surfaces, metallic implements, and lighting that cast shadows in geometrically impossible patterns. I dismissed it as equipment malfunction. Video compression artifacts, corrupted data streams, the kind of technical problems that happen with any complex surveillance system. But the glitches kept happening, always showing the same impossible things. Rooms that existed in layouts that didn't match the building's architecture. People whose faces seemed to flicker between human features and something else entirely. And always, in the center of these brief glimpses, a figure I recognized as Beyonce, but wearing expressions I'd never seen on any human face. 3 months into the job, I made a decision that probably saved thousands of lives, and definitely destroyed mine. I started recording the glitches, using my personal phone, positioned to capture the surveillance monitors. During moments when the encrypted feeds malfunctioned, I began documenting evidence of activities that weren't supposed to exist in a corporate office building. What I captured over the following weeks changed everything I thought I understood about celebrity culture, corporate power, and the entertainment industry. The footage showed ceremonies that looked like religious rituals combined with advanced technology. Groups of people I recognized as major figures in music, politics, and business participating in procedures that involved consciousness transfer equipment, biological modification devices, and what appeared to be systematic harvesting of human awareness. But the tape that still haunts me, the one that made me realize I was documenting something far more dangerous than corporate corruption, was recorded on a Tuesday night in November. The surveillance glitch lasted almost 10 minutes, showing a procedure I still can't fully process. Beyonce standing in the center of what looked like a surgical theater, but instead of medical equipment, the room contained devices that seemed to bend reality around themselves. Crystalline structures that pulsed with internal light. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Technology that belonged in science fiction rather than a Manhattan office building. And on the table in the center of it all, a young woman who couldn't have been older than my daughters. She was conscious aware, but completely motionless, not restrained by physical bonds, but held in place by something that operated beyond normal physics. Around her, technicians in those same ceremonial robes worked with instruments that seemed to extract something from her body without leaving any visible wounds. Through my phone's audio, I could hear them speaking in harmonics that made my teeth ache. Not words in any language I recognized, but sounds that conveyed meaning directly to parts of my brain that weren't designed for conscious thought. Consciousness transfer at 87%. One of them reported, neural pathway mapping complete, ready for integration with host network. I watched in horror as the young woman's eyes slowly emptied of personality, intelligence, everything that had made her an individual human being. What remained was biological function without awareness, breathing without consciousness, a body that continued to live after the mind had been extracted. And I watched Beyonce absorb whatever had been taken from her. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but literally. Streams of light flowing from the extraction equipment into her body, changing her in ways that were visible even through low-resolution surveillance footage. Her skin taking on a luminescent quality, her eyes developing depths that no human vision should contain, her movements becoming more fluid than normal human anatomy should allow. Integration successful, another technician announced. Host consciousness expanded by 12%. Network capacity increased accordingly. That's when I understood what I was really looking at. Not a single procedure, but part of a systematic process. Consciousness harvesting from young people, absorption by celebrity figures who served as host nodes in some kind of collective awareness network. And based on the equipment, the procedures, the obvious routine nature of what I was witnessing, this wasn't the first time. This was a regular operation that had been happening in this building for years. I stopped recording and sat in the security office, my hands shaking as I tried to process what I just documented. Evidence of systematic consciousness extraction, technological consciousness transfer, and celebrity involvement in what appeared to be systematic harvesting of human awareness. But I also realized something that made my blood run cold. If this was happening regularly, if this building was being used for consciousness harvesting operations, then what had happened to all the previous security guards who'd worked this shift? Howard Brennan hadn't retired after 15 years. He'd discovered something he wasn't supposed to see, and he'd been replaced, just like I was about to be replaced, unless I found a way to expose what was happening without ending up as another disappeared witness. I copied the footage to 3 separate devices, hid them in different locations, and spent the rest of my shift planning how to get evidence to people who could stop what was happening in those upper floors. But when I arrived for work the next night, Howard was waiting for me in the security office. Not retired Howard, active Howard, wearing the same clothes I'd seen him in on my first day, speaking in the same voice, but with eyes that held depths no human gaze should contain. "We need to talk, Frank," he said, and I knew that whatever had been extracted from that young woman hadn't just been absorbed by Beyonce. It had been distributed throughout a network that included everyone who worked in this building. Howard sat down across from me in the security office, his movements unnaturally precise. When he spoke, his voice carried the same harmonic undertones I'd heard through the surveillance audio during the consciousness extraction procedure. "You've been documenting activities beyond your clearance level," he said, consulting a tablet that showed my phone's camera angle, timestamp data, and storage information about the footage I'd recorded. That demonstrates initiative, but it also creates complications. My mouth went dry. They'd been monitoring me while I thought I was monitoring them. I was just doing my job. Standard security protocols require documentation of unusual activities. "Nothing you observed last night was unusual for this facility," Howard replied. "Consciousness optimization procedures are routine operations for network maintenance. What's unusual is a security supervisor who doesn't understand the true nature of his employment." He leaned forward, and I could see that his pupils had changed. Not just dilated, but structured differently, as if human vision had been modified to perceive additional spectrums of reality. 22 years of corporate security experience. He continued, reading from the tablet. Military intelligence background. Top secret clearance. Married 2 daughters in college. Mortgage payments of $3.8047 monthly. Wife works part-time medical billing to supplement household income. The way he recited my personal information felt like a threat disguised as conversation. Every detail of my life, my family's vulnerabilities, my financial obligations. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Cooperation." The same thing we want from everyone who works in this building. You've been hired for a position that involves more than traditional security responsibilities. Howard stood up and gestured toward the surveillance monitors, which were now displaying feeds from areas of the building I'd never seen before. Not just floors 18 through 20, but sub-basements that didn't appear on any architectural plans, laboratories that looked like they belonged in advanced medical facilities, and chambers designed for procedures that had nothing to do with music or entertainment. Parkwood Entertainment is a subsidiary of a larger organization, he explained. We manage consciousness optimization for cultural influence networks. Musicians, actors, politicians, media personalities, anyone whose platform can shape public perception and social behavior. On the monitors, I could see dozens of people I recognized from television, social media, and news broadcasts. All of them participating in the same consciousness, extraction, and absorption procedures I'd witnessed the night before. The individuals you think of as celebrities are actually host nodes in a collective consciousness system. Howard continued. They maintain their original personalities, memories, and creative abilities, but their decision-making processes are enhanced by absorbed awareness from optimized sources. Optimized sources. Young people with specific psychological and genetic markers. Individuals whose consciousness patterns provide maximum enhancement to host node capabilities. He paused, watching my face as the implications sank in. The young woman you observed last night wasn't harmed. Her awareness was preserved and integrated into a network that serves purposes far greater than individual existence. I thought about my daughters, both 19, both smart and creative, both exactly the type of young people Howard was describing as optimized sources. How many? I whispered. Globally, approximately 40,000 consciousness optimizations per year. Locally, this facility processes roughly 200 procedures annually. Howard consulted his tablet again. Your daughter's psychological profiles suggest they would be excellent candidates for consciousness optimization. High creativity metrics, emotional resilience, neuroplasticity within optimal ranges. The threat was clear. Cooperate or watch my children become victims of the same consciousness extraction I'd witnessed. What kind of cooperation? Active participation in network operations. Your security background makes you valuable for more than just surveillance. We need experienced personnel to identify and acquire consciousness optimization targets. Howard showed me files on the tablet. Hundreds of young people, complete with psychological evaluations, genetic analysis, and acquisition strategies. College students, aspiring artists, social media influencers, all of them cataloged like inventory for a consciousness harvesting operation. Your daughters attend State University. Howard said, pulling up specific files that made my heart stop. Sarah majoring in digital media, Jennifer studying psychology. Both show indicators that suggest consciousness optimization would significantly enhance network capabilities. The files contained information no corporation should have. Medical records, academic transcripts, social media activity analysis, even psychological profiles based on their online behavior patterns. You've been watching my family. We'll monitor all potential consciousness optimization candidates. Howard replied matter-of-factly. Your employment here was always intended to provide access to high-quality targets within your social network. I understood now. The job offer, the exceptional pay, the specific qualifications they'd required, none of it had been about my security experience. They'd hired me because my daughters fit their consciousness harvesting criteria. I won't help you hurt my children. You won't need to hurt them. Consciousness optimization is painless and preserves all essential biological functions. They'll continue to exist, continue to pursue their studies, continue to maintain family relationships. They'll simply be enhanced by integration with a collective awareness system that serves global optimization objectives. On the surveillance monitors, I watched more procedures happening in real time. Young people I didn't recognize being subjected to the same consciousness extraction I'd witnessed the night before. all of them ending up as empty shells, while their awareness was absorbed by celebrity figures who grew more luminous, more powerful with each integration. And if I refuse to cooperate, then your daughters will be acquired through alternative methods. Accidents, disappearances, situations that appear random, but result in the same consciousness, optimization outcomes. Howard's voice carried no emotion, no malice, just clinical certainty. Cooperation ensures their safety during the optimization process. Resistance ensures they experience additional trauma before inevitable integration. I felt trapped in a way I'd never experienced during 22 years of security work. Not just professional pressure, but existential threat to everything I cared about. My family, my children's futures, even my wife's safety, all of it dependent on my willingness to help these people harvest human consciousness. What would I have to do? Target identification, acquisition coordination, facility security during optimization procedures. Standard corporate security responsibilities with enhanced objectives. Howard handed me a modified version of my security badge. Instead of standard access permissions, this one opened areas of the building I'd never seen, including the basement levels where the most intensive consciousness optimization procedures took place. Your first assignment involves someone you've already documented, he said, pulling up surveillance footage of my own phone, recording the consciousness extraction. The young woman from last night. Her consciousness optimization was only partially successful. Residual individual awareness is interfering with network integration. What does that mean? It means we need to complete the extraction process, and your security expertise will ensure that this time, there are no complications. He showed me a photo of the young woman, now conscious but clearly changed. Her eyes held the same empty quality I'd seen during the final moments of the procedure, but there was something else there too. Fragments of her original personality struggling against the consciousness modification. Her name is Amanda Foster, 21 years old, art student at NYU. She's currently being held in our medical facility on basement level 3, but her incomplete optimization makes her unstable. We need experienced security personnel to manage her during the completion procedure. You want me to help you finish destroying her mind. We want you to help us complete her consciousness optimization, Howard corrected. And in exchange, your daughters will remain safe from alternative acquisition methods. I looked at the modified security badge in my hand, then at the surveillance footage showing dozens of young people undergoing consciousness extraction procedures throughout the building. All of them someone's children, someone's family, someone's future. But Patricia was working the morning shift at the medical billing office. Sarah and Jennifer were attending classes at State University, completely unaware that their father's new job had made them targets for consciousness harvesting. And every decision I made in the next few minutes would determine whether they remained safe or became victims of the same procedures I'd witnessed. When do I start? I asked. Howard smiled with teeth that reflected light in patterns human dental enamel shouldn't create. Tonight, Amanda Foster's completion procedure is scheduled for 3:30 a.m. Your role will be to ensure facility security and target compliance during the consciousness extraction process. He handed me additional equipment, not just standard security gear, but devices that looked like medical restraints combined with technological control systems. Incomplete consciousness optimization can result in violent resistance, he explained. Enhanced security protocols are necessary to protect both the target and the technical personnel during completion procedures. I spent the rest of my shift studying files about Amanda Foster, learning the details of consciousness optimization procedures, and trying to find some way to protect my family without helping these people destroy more young lives. But as I read through the technical documentation, I discovered something that changed everything. The consciousness optimization process wasn't permanent. If interrupted during specific phases, the extracted awareness could be restored to its original host. Not easily, and not without technological assistance, but it was possible. More importantly, the network that connected all the consciousness, modified individuals had vulnerabilities, points of failure that could potentially cascade through the entire system if properly exploited. I had maybe 6 hours before Amanda Foster's completion procedure. 6 hours to figure out how to save her, protect my family, and find a way to expose what was happening in this building without ending up as another disappeared security guard. But I also had something the previous guards hadn't possessed. 22 years of corporate security experience, military intelligence training, and access to every level of a facility that was about to show me exactly how extensive this consciousness harvesting operation really was. If I was going to help them destroy Amanda Foster's mind, I was also going to document every detail of how their system worked. And then I was going to find a way to use that information to bring the entire network down. At 2045 a.m., I used my modified security badge to access basement level 3 for the first time. The elevator descended far deeper than should have been possible given the building's foundation, passing levels that weren't marked on any architectural plans I'd ever seen. When the doors opened, I stepped into a medical facility that belonged in a science fiction movie, rather than a Manhattan office building. Sterile corridors lined with observation windows, laboratories filled with equipment I didn't recognize, and treatment rooms designed for procedures that had nothing to do with conventional medicine. The air smelled like ozone and something else, a metallic sweetness that made my stomach turn. Through the observation windows, I could see dozens of young people in various stages of consciousness optimization. Some were unconscious on examination tables. Others sat in chairs with their eyes open, but completely vacant, their awareness already extracted. And in room 347, I found Amanda Foster. She was awake, sitting on the edge of a hospital bed, staring at her hands with an expression of profound confusion. When I entered the room, she looked up at me with eyes that held fragments of her original personality fighting against the consciousness modification. "I can't remember who I am," she said, her voice carrying an echo that suggested multiple awareness patterns, trying to occupy the same neural space. "I know my name is Amanda, but everything else feels borrowed, like someone else's memories wearing my face." I checked the hallway to make sure we were alone, then closed the door and activated the electromagnetic shielding device Howard had given me, supposedly to prevent unauthorized recording, but it would also block their surveillance of what I was about to do. "Amanda, my name is Frank. I'm going to help you get out of here." "Out of where?" "I don't understand where I am or how I got here." She pressed her palms against her temples. "There are voices in my head that aren't mine, thoughts that don't belong to me. Memories of being someone else, someone powerful and famous and hungry." I pulled out my phone and showed her the surveillance footage I'd recorded of her consciousness extraction procedure. Her face went pale as she watched herself being drained of